Welcome everyone to the third instalment of the Women Beryl International Women's Day series. My name's Anne and I'm a product designer at Beryl. This conversation is going to be around intersectionality. So for people who don't know what that means, it's basically a term that was created by a professor in 1989 called Kimberly Crenshaw. And intersectionality is basically when it's the acknowledgement that marginalized identities can intersect into one person. So for example, me, I'm a Black woman, and that means that I experience disadvantages because I'm Black, and I experience disadvantages because I'm a woman, and I experience disadvantages particularly because I'm a Black woman. And these marginalized identities can come in many different forms, for example, race, gender, sexuality, disability, religion, and class. We're focusing on this, I guess, the theme for International Women's Day this year, which is Choose to Challenge. And we're specifically looking at that through the lens of intersectionality. So looking at choosing to challenge the status quo in tech teams, and also choosing to challenge the concept of community in micromobility. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. So to start with, we've got Nadine Grant.
Nadine, hi everyone. I'm Nadine. Like Anne said, I'm a user researcher and I'm currently studying my master's, but I also am the founder of Talk About Dyslexia, which is working to create awareness and change perception of dyslexia, especially for young people.
Great, thanks Nadine. And next up we have Catherine Tingle.
Hi, evening everyone. Hi, so I'm a FTSE 100 tech leader. So essentially I sit within tech leadership at Sainsbury's Tech. So I am responsible for leading our tech transformation initiatives and programs, which are high profile and are multi-million deals as well. So it means that I've got quite a lot of responsibility, really keen to get stuck into this conversation, especially around intersectionality, being a Black woman within leadership, within tech, which all the statistics show are not many of us. So looking forward to exploring what that means with you all today.
And we've got Ifat Tejani.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Anne. I'm Ifat Tejani. I'm a British cycling race champion, almost level 1 coach. I'm a founder of Evolve, which is a cycling network for Muslim women. And when I'm not obsessing about bikes and cycling, I'm a web developer.
Yeah, great to have you guys on board. And we've also got Galo Roma.
Hi everyone. So I'm Galo. I'm currently working at Tier Mobility. So I'm coming from micromobility.
Oh, you're cutting out a bit, Galo. Maybe if you turn your camera off, we might hear your sound.
Intersectionality as a woman of color, and
oh, we can't hear you properly, Galo. But we can. Oh, we can't hear you.
Migrant background. So yeah, I'm also looking forward to go into discussion.
Great. So next week.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. But we didn't hear the whole entire thing. But Gala is an operations lead at Tier Mobility and is also the founder of Women at Tier, their women's group. And we have Chioma Fanawopo.
Hi, everyone. Hi, my name is Chioma Fanawopo, and it's a pleasure to be here. I am a team leader of the Youth and Young Adults Department of a charity, an international development charity. But outside of that, I work with young people, and so really been raising awareness about careers in tech for parents and for young people. And some of that came about as a result of my 16-year-old who was really interested in tech, and so he got me rediscovering my first interest and my first love for technology and computers. So really passionate about showcasing careers in tech to young people and to parents. And outside of work, I also run a platform called the Parenting Power. And so really using that to raise awareness of the countless and numerous careers that are in technology today. And it's great to be here with everyone.
Yeah, great to have you all on the panel. Yeah, we've got really an inspiring bunch of women on the stage here today. So I just wanted to remind everyone that we are going to be doing a Q&A towards the end, so definitely get your questions in kind of as we go along. So we can start with, yeah, I guess both Chioma and Nadine. What do you think are some of the barriers in getting more Black women and girls into tech roles?
Yeah, I can go. So I think, yeah, there are quite a few different barriers in terms of, yeah, getting more Black women and girls into tech roles, and you know, some of them are kind of to do with awareness of the roles, because I suppose you know, being a student when you're at school, for myself personally, I did, you know, quite academic subjects, and you know, I did photography, and then you know, it wasn't until after I started to explore that I realized that you know, there's a world of different roles that the tech industry it can kind of create for women, and yeah, and you know, you could be a business analyst or a developer like yourself, and or you could, you know, and you know, but I think in terms of, yeah, like the qualifications, it's hard because you see those roles, and then when you apply for them, often you might get rejected because you don't have the experience that is like needed, which you know, it's hard because it's like you want to go and get the experience, but then you know, you apply for a job and they say, well, you don't have it, and then like, well, how do I get it? But you know, sometimes it's, you know, you have to kind of create that opportunity by, you know, creating like your own personal project or something like that. But you know, and I think that the other side of that is, I suppose, the education, and sometimes, you know, education is quite a commitment, and you know, there's boot camps and various other ways that people can enter the industry, but then they come at a cost. So then again, that's another barrier, because you think, okay, you're one step closer, but also it's hard to kind of yeah, to get there. And you know, the last thing I'll finish on is the kind of role models, because you know, for Black women, seeing, you know, positive Black women at high, you know, CEO levels, or just, you know, high senior roles, sometimes you don't see that in the tech industry because it is seen as, you know, a more male orientated industry. So it means that it doesn't seem accessible to enter, because you don't really see people that you might be able to relate to.
Absolutely, and I was just going to add to that, and just to say that a lack of representation, because I do think that when you think of computer scientists, you don't think of a Black woman. So if you actually type into Google computer science or developer, the image that comes up is not a Black woman at all. And so I think, and even down to the early stages in primary school and secondary school, you don't see technology as a career being offered to girls. It might be something that they might say, yeah, boys are more likely to get into coding and games and things, but it's not something that girls are encouraged to do. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm really part of an organization called Coding Black Females, and they're really trying to change that, because they noticed that Black women make up 1% of those in tech. And so they're really changing the narrative by working alongside different organizations to change that. And there are also other organizations such as STEMET, who really work with secondary school girls to show them careers in technology and expose them to that.
Yeah, I think that's a a really good point. I think it's just like having the access, and also even knowing that these careers are out there, and there's so many tech careers that aren't that don't actually involve coding. For example, like what I do, like UX, that doesn't involve coding, and it's something I just discovered by myself. And I think it's just, yeah, actually having that awareness and people actually knowing that it's possible is such an important thing. And Nadine, I guess wanted to learn a bit more about your experience as someone with dyslexia working as a user researcher. How do you think, basically your experiences impact the work that you're doing?
Yeah, like you said, being a user researcher who is dyslexic, it means that, yeah, it has impacted sometimes the way that I work or I process things, because because sometimes I it does have those challenges, but I think also it has the strengths, like, like things like the creative side, or the resilience and things like that, and it kind of helps to how I kind of show up when I work in roles. And I think that in some experiences that I have, I think what I've learned now, which I didn't know earlier on in my career, is the kind of which is like being on this in this conversation and discussion we're having is like being open and talking about it. Because I think, especially like when I left school, I didn't find out actually that I was dyslexic till my foundation year, and then when I sort of went to go for jobs, I didn't really want to say, because obviously, how will an employer think of me if they're like, oh, she's got dyslexia? So as I've kind of progressed and in my career and spoken to people and been more open about it myself and been more comfortable with it, it's kind of given me the confidence to share about it and talk about it. And an example I can give is recently I had an interview for a user research role, and they set us a project task, which is quite common in design or UX roles. And it was just before the interview started, and I was a bit unsure whether I'd be able to complete it in the task. So I just said to them, I do have dyslexia, is there any way I might be able to have a little bit of extra time to prepare? And they were really accommodating. And I think it's a thing that companies need to create, that opportunity, but also people need to feel that they can ask for that support. Because before I never would have asked, because I would have been like, they're definitely going to say no, or they're going to be like, oh, we don't want to hire her. So I think it's that kind of open conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, it is a superpower. It's an advantage to your team. Like, you don't want people with all the same abilities and skill sets on the team, because then it's a very weak team, and you don't you need to balance each other out. And there's some things that some people would be really good at, and some things other people wouldn't. And it's all about like having a diverse team in all senses is just, it's a no-brainer, really. And kind of talk us through kind of how Talk About Dyslexia came about, and what your aims are for that.
Yeah, of course. So Talk About Dyslexia actually started when I was on my undergraduate degree. So we were set an interactive design module, and I was just looking into different interactive technology that was out there. And bear in mind, I didn't really know about tech and all those things at the time, and we had to pick something that we were interested and passionate about. And obviously, being dyslexic, I thought that'd be a great opportunity to connect with others and find out about their experiences. And so the project has kind of just continued to kind of evolve from there. And the mission, the purpose, like why I kind of want to do it and why I'm passionate about it, is because I think, especially for young people, like in my experience, I didn't find out until my late teens. Quite a lot of people I've spoken to have struggled at school, and it's because they don't know. And it's not like the teacher's fault, but because sometimes they don't have the training, or if they don't know you're struggling, then they can't help you because that conversation's not there, kind of thing. So it's kind of like I just want to help people create awareness and about dyslexia, so that people know that it's a strength, like you said earlier. And I think what I've discovered as I've spoken to people is, you know, people have like such great gifts, like, you know, they think out of the box and they do all these things, and, you know, all the assets that being dyslexic or, you know, having, you know, anything, what makes you unique is what is you, it's your gift, and that's what you can bring to a company or your school or, you know, whatever, wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And I think another thing about like dyslexia, like I was reading the book Self-Fulfillment with Dyslexia by Margaret D. Maples, and there was a quote from a study that the BBC did, and it said that 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. And you know, it shows that you know, that there's power in finding strength in who you are. And, you know, there's so many, you know, celebrities or famous people or whatever who have dyslexia, and, you know, more people being open about their experiences, that just kind of creates a conversation, and it's the role models, it's someone that you can look up to and say, well, if they did it, then, you know, what's to say that I can't do it too?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, Choma, I know you've been doing some work with coding Black females. So would you be able to just talk us through a bit more about yeah, how you've been what the work that they do?
Okay, so Coding Black Females is a not-for-profit that was set up by Charlene Hunter, and she set it up in 2017. And her mission was really to change the whole narrative and find women like herself who were in tech. Because as I mentioned previously, the statistics says that less than Black women make up less than 1% of the IT industry. She started to bring people together who were in tech in different roles, from developers to UX designers, those at university, and really, and it's now grown in 2021, where they've now partnered up with different organizations. So they've done that through training, through talks online. So they have a podcast, they have a YouTube channel, and they're really just raising awareness about women in tech. They've got various initiatives going, but the most important one right now that they have is that they've partnered with the BCS, which is the British Institute of Computer Science, which is part of the, most of you probably know BCS. So they partnered with them to give membership. So I think it's about 10 women. And that has really helped a lot of women. So I'm actually part of that, and I'm on that membership now. And it's really opened up vast things and resources for me as a woman who's sort of starting out in tech as well. So that's been really amazing. So BCS are really, as well as Coding Black Females, on a journey to showcase women, help to train them up, and help to sort of bring that support for women who are in tech, because it can feel quite lonely. And I guess a lot of you here might have that experience where you might say, be the only woman, you know, perhaps Black woman or a woman of color in your team. And so actually find out that there's a real community out there, and so you don't feel alone. So they have a WhatsApp group, they have a Slack channel, they have all sorts of problems, and then they also have like social events as well, bringing women together. And there's a leadership team who've really tried to showcase women, and they've actually got a initiative at the moment called Women Visible in Tech. So they're really highlighting and showcasing women who are visible in tech and who are in tech at the moment. So it's a great opportunity to bring women together, support each other, and get training, and showcase the world that there are a group of women, or Black women or women of color, who are in technology. Really excited. So I'm really pleased to be part of a group like that.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolutely amazing group, and really important. And yeah, how do you think we can make these tech roles actually more accessible to Black women in particular?
I would say things like, so what Charlene Hunter and the team are doing is partnering with organizations, because I think it means that they can get their jobs in front of a diverse group of women. So I'll definitely say that's one way of doing so. The other way is removing some of the barriers to entry. So I think really just creating space so that people like Nadine mentioned, who might not necessarily have all the experience, that you're able to be open and say, actually, they bring something to the table. They might not have everything, but giving people an opportunity, but also hiring people that don't look like you, because historically we know that there is a thing that people generally hire those that look like them or feel that maybe they have a similar education or they can have things that they relate to, or really just actually saying they might not look like you, they might not have been to the same schools as you, but actually they're amazing at what they do. So I think creating an opportunity for those to come in and creating space at the table for everyone. So I think that's a really important thing for recruiters to do more of, being open, but also being aware of our biases, because I really believe that we all have a bias, whether we acknowledge it or not. Some people call it unconscious bias. So really acknowledging we all have biases and actually doing the work within yourself to identify, being aware of it means that you can check yourself if you're a recruiter and say, hey, this person might not look like me or might not have the experiences that I have, but they've got something to offer. So I think that's a key thing for recruiters to be aware of.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Catherine, I know you've founded the Non-Techies Journey to Tech, which I guess covers a lot of these issues. So would you be able to kind of talk us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So Non-Techies Journey to Tech was really born out of the fact that I have a non-technical background. So I studied law at university, I've got a strategy consulting background, I worked at Gartner, I worked at Deloitte. So I had a non-traditional kind of journey into technology. I didn't study a STEM degree. I didn't study computer science, for example, as a degree. And when we're thinking about entry barriers, those things do plague women, especially women of colour and Black women's mind when trying to launch their tech career. They think, oh, I don't know how to code, or oh, I need to learn how to code in order to get into tech. Whereas I don't know how to code, but I'm having a thriving tech career to the point where I'm now in tech leadership within the FTSE 100, which is isn't really heard of. I think if we think about the statistics that we've even heard just today, that if 1% of technology industry is made up of Black women, and then if we try to break that down into how many of those 1% of women are actually in leadership, I mean, the figures are shocking. It's appalling. So part of the reason why I wanted to, and I did create Non-Techies Journey to Tech, is to really spotlight other women who are trailblazers within technology who actually have a non-technical background. So the likes of Claudine Adeyemi, who is the founder of the Student Development Company, for example. There's another a woman who's in fashion, Net-a-Porter, so one of the biggest like fashion, e-commerce, tech kind of businesses. Again, she has a legal background. So I think it's really important to share stories of women who are kind of the unsung heroes almost within spaces that, you know, little girls may want to get into, or they don't even know that it exists because, you know, the school kind of system is almost rigged against them, because STEM subjects for girls, I mean, it is definitely getting better, and we see primary and secondary schools really investing in their STEM kind of education for girls and trying to encourage girls to get into it. And we have fantastic kind of companies that we've already discussed today who have initiatives to help girls get into it. But I think that, you know, role models and sharing of stories is so important within a male white dominated industry. You know, you hear the stories of like on Twitter of like the tech bros, you know, the typical white middle class kind of men who dominate the tech industry, whether that's in the Silicon Valley or whether that's here in London or other parts of the world. And I firmly believe that, and all the, again, data shows that having a diverse workforce and having people around the table that don't look all alike and there doesn't have that affinity bias of, you know, recruiting the same person who looks like you, talks like you, has had the same education as you, walks in the same social circles as you, or the same kind of, you know, likes doing the same things as you. When you actually step away from that affinity bias and you look around the table or a boardroom and you have got diversity, it shows in revenue, it shows in your company performance. There's tangible benefits to investing in a diverse workforce. So I think going back to your original question, around non-techies' journey to tech, again, it's about kind of the role modeling, the sharing of stories, showing that, you know, you can take the road less traveled and have a fruitful, amazing career. And yes, there's bumps along the way, because we are all here today to talk about intersectionality, and we know that that flags up loads of challenges. But putting those things aside, I'm really passionate about women and girls taking up their rightful space and taking that seat at the table. And that's in rooms that may feel uncomfortable because you're one of one, but it's always about opening that door to make sure that, you know, more people come, you know, through the doors because they look at you and they think, oh, okay, it's achievable.
And yeah, like what have been some of your experiences as a Black woman in leadership roles? I guess compared to, you know, for example, a white man. How have you found it?
Yeah, like I said, there's bumps. It's challenging. There's horror stories. You become incredibly resilient to things that we shouldn't have to become resilient to because they're outright wrong. But we can't be naive in terms of like the world that we're living in currently, although we're trying to kind of shift the dial in terms of people's prejudices and discrimination and you know, equality and access to those rooms. I think that naturally, because like you said, Anne, in your introduction, being a Black woman, it's like almost like a double whammy. It's not, it's fantastic. I love being a Black woman. But if we think about it in the context of work, corporate, technology, and all of that stuff, it's a double whammy in the sense that all the statistics are kind of against you. So when you are faced with tough situations where you may feel that you're being mistreated or treated differently than maybe your male white counterpart, or even your white woman counterpart, because there are different like complexities with that. It's hard to pinpoint, you know, well, is this because I'm a woman and you have discriminatory feelings towards women in the workplace and us using our voice and how valuable we are, and we're not just the note takers and we're not here to make your teas and coffees and clean up after you after we've all left the meeting room? Or is it also multi-layered in the fact that I'm a Black woman and maybe when I open my mouth I challenge your stereotypes of what you think I should sound like, or what you think I should look like, or what you think my educational background or experience should be. So it's definitely a journey. It's definitely challenging. I have stories for days.
I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the non-techies journey to tech. So everyone definitely follow Catherine's Medium. Yeah, you've really got some really great articles in there.
Thank you.
But I kind of wanted to touch on, I guess, this the point that you kind of brought up around like belonging and feeling like you're part of it, feeling like you're part of the team, and wanted to bring Gala in and that because I know kind of imposter syndrome is something that you were really passionate about. So yeah, I guess if you wanted to talk about I guess your experiences and how you've seen kind of imposter syndrome affecting minorities in tech in particular.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
regarding imposter syndrome on minorities, so I believe that, at least from what I heard from my friends and what I read, imposter syndrome can affect like anyone. It doesn't matter like who you are. It happens to everyone. But for the minority, it is like the external trigger is so much stronger. So minorities are often being the view or even being the only one. And then when they're in some workplace, they are different from the people who tend to obtain some leadership role, and they sometimes they also like lack of role models, like of colleague who look like you or who have the same background like you. So all of these kind of like factors can basically makes you feel like you don't belong there, make you feel like you are this factor can foster a powerful feeling of self-doubt, insecurities, and ultimately culminating in imposter syndrome. And how does it affect me personally? So I have a lot of examples. For example, like for me, most of the time it's language. So I have an accent, and it's not French, so it's not sexy. And sometimes people tend to, laugh at things that I pronounce or I misspell, and then they correct me, and I'm totally fine when they, when they correct me, because that's how I learn as well. But when people like laugh at your pronunciation over and over in a lot of like many occasions, it's just like sometimes I feel like I choose to just be quiet instead of saying something, because I'm so afraid that I will ridicule myself, for example, even though the message is the same. So this is kind of like one of the example. Another feeling is that sometimes I feel like I don't belong in a place. So for example, years ago, I was so excited that I was accepted in the job. And then I was super excited to go for to my first day. And then on my onboarding day, I was in a room with 11 white male. I was the only woman there, and I was the only woman of color. And I guess I was the only person who has a migrant background. So everyone was very nice to me, and then additionally on top of that, all the people who on board us was like looking like them, So despite everyone was super nice to me, I remember that, and everyone would treated me like professionally. I remember that day I sent my boyfriend text me like, hey, how's your first day? And I remember the first thing that I said to him was like, I just want to disappear. Because I don't feel like I belong there. And I was like, I asked after 3 days of onboarding, I asked myself like, what did I sign up myself to, because I'm like, I feel like I just feel different. I feel like I don't belong there. So all of these things are happens as well in people's coming from different background with the majority. And this is why what I said with like external triggers sometimes stronger when it comes to minority.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's definitely things that like everyone can learn from that, and making people feel welcome, and also just like putting yourself in other people's shoes, like as a white man, as one of those 11 white men interviewing you. They probably didn't see any issue with that. That's probably like how they've interviewed at all times. But yeah, it's all about putting yourself in other people's shoes and seeing like from their perspective, this is a very intimidating and just a horrible environment to be in, and kind of sets a bad precedent for your work, and also can put applicants off even applying to your jobs. So I think it's definitely something that a lot of people can learn from. And I wanted to talk to you about your work with Women at Tier, and how are you kind of creating a safe space for women at Tier from all backgrounds to kind of thrive at your organization?
Right. So actually, that's come from this kind of experience. So I know that I don't want to be the only one, and I know that women in the organization, especially I'm coming from micromobility, and amongst like all other industry, this is also very male dominated word, you know, like transportation. So I feel like I don't want someone feel like they're the only one. I don't want someone that they feel lonely and they feel alone. They don't know like to who they need to talk, because of course they cannot talk to, like, you know, it's hard to relate when you talk with people who are very different with you, who may not understand what you're going through. So I was talking with my colleague. It was just like, hey, let's just create a platform when everyone, like women, can just talk in a safe place. So we create, like, just in the beginning we just like Slack channel, and then it was so many enthusiasm, so we kind of like, okay, let's bring all of us together. So we create every month we invite women in leadership position to just like talk about the experience as a woman in a leadership position, what's their challenge, etc., to kind of like show, hey, as a woman you can also be like them, you know, like there are people who make it out and we can also be like them, just as an inspiration. And then it grew up, the community grew up, and then we also have basically a lot of talk beyond tier, and we also and like internally, as in terms of safe space itself, we have, for example, lunch, just like virtual lunch every Thursday, to just like only for women, so we can just, you know, ask question, rant, you can just try to support each other, and they're like, you can be very open, and we're just like, you know, like what's spoken in that space basically only stay there. So only like as simple as that can make people feel like, you know, I know where to go when I have something to share. And also we also try to push in terms of the leadership position to be more equal, and we try to push regarding like the awareness. So this kind of like conversation doesn't only happen in March, but also we try to push it more happening like in a daily basis, you know, so people are aware of like what they say, how they treat others, and this is are important for the company. So you know, like we want to prevent it for people to say like bad thing in this safe space, so by having this awareness and also pushing on the company culture itself.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like more companies need to have that, and also have a place that people actually can trust as well, that it is actually safe. I just want to remind everyone, definitely keep your questions coming in, because we'll be going into the Q&A towards the end. But on that same topic of creating a safe space, how are you kind of creating a safe space for the Muslim women in your cycling group?
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, before I kind of talk about that, I have to say the tech side of mine completely can relate to all of you. I remember actually turning up at a Magento developers conference, and there was a group of, you know, men, and I turned up as the only Muslim woman, and it was, I can totally relate. Yes, it may not look like you, but you know, you have to give people a chance. But talking, you know, coming back to cycling, so it's almost the same as, you know, what we've been discussing about is, you know, the lack of role models. So we're trying to create an environment that is, you know, it's familiar to you, and it's more, if you look at all our riders as well, you know, it caters all from beginners all the way to advanced as well. It's actually a place where you can be yourself. All the decisions are made by women. You know, our partners are all women. So it's, and if you actually are on social media, we've got our Friday inspiration, which in fact, we only not look at cycling yourself. We're actually looking at Muslim women and women as well, who have really made such a difference, you know, because some are, you know, some are medics and stuff, actually bring them forward as well. And particularly in cycling, if you look at the image of cycling, you know, it's always lycra, and you will rarely see with a Muslim woman with a hijab, and you rarely see a Muslim girl with a hijab. So this is what we're trying to now do, is create that space. And you know, Evolve is affiliated with British Cycling, so we're actually working with them as well, because cycling is very much a white men's sport. So we are trying to create a space where we can actually even train our own girls to be able to, you know, hopefully one day have a girl in hijab and on the podium. That's the ultimate dream.
Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing, and you're definitely well on your way to getting there. But what do you think are some of the barriers to more Muslim women cycling?
You know what, cycling in Muslim women is not as, you know, it's still a stigma. It's not as normal yet. You know, if you look at the role models out there, you know, there's only Suhana Islam, who's one of them, and you've got Sister Cycling who are coming up, but still as role model. And if you were to look at other, you know, in you know, with Muslims in minority as well, they're not those role models that girls could inspire too. So that's one of the barriers. The other barriers is obviously, you know, we need to, you know, we are Muslims, so we do cycle in hijab as well, and you know, the whole lycra is not as modest as we'd like to be, but that's something we're working on. We're really trying to, you know, create a prototype where we can actually turn the jersey into, you know, into a modest, you know, for Muslim women. There's also a couple of barriers, you know, in cycling. There is lack of, like, you know, okay, there are female coaching coming out, but there are hardly any female mechanics. So that is one of the things that we're trying to do, is train women to become mechanics as well. So there are quite a few, you know, these are the barriers we are working through. Some of them we've jumped. There's still a bit of way to go as well.
What impact have you kind of had so far, do you think, by starting Evolve?
Well, we actually held the first women Muslim women sportive in 2020. So that was with another club, and there was a group of 45 women who actually were almost, you know, all of them were beginners, or they just come back from cycling. We put them into a development plan. They went to complete about 45 nights. We've trained about 50 women to become, you know, to learn to ride as well. So it's created a group of sisterhood where, you know, yes, we are like each other. We can understand, you know, and as coaches as well, you know, you know, some of us come from India, some of us come from East Africa, and suddenly we see a group that's training, and they are all 40 plus women. So it's made an impact to those women who always were thought could not do this, or, you know, or I can't do it, or it's not for me. So that is kind of the stereotype we're trying to break. That yes, it is possible, you know, to come. I mean, my typical example is, for me, I did not learn to ride until I was 37, and it took a diagnosis of cancer, which after that I was like, right, I got to do something, and I went and learned. And then again, I had a relapse last year, and I went right to the bottom and had to restart again, and yet went and completed, you know. So it is that possible, whether you're in tech or whether you're cycling, it is possible for you. It is possible for us to step out, and yeah, we need to be heard as well.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's such an inspiring story, and yeah, I'm wishing you all the best with where you take Evolve.
Thank you.
Just before we get into like Q&A, yeah, everyone feel free to keep sending your questions. But I wanted to ask everyone in the panel, actually, what advice would you give to someone trying to create a culture of intersectionality, whether it's in their tech company, in their mobility company, in their cycling group? Yeah, feel free to speak up.
Yeah, I can I think it's all about kind of creating that open environment. It's like a place that people can just you know be themselves. And I guess for employers, it's kind of taking on, you know, like intersectionality. It's got so many different factors of, you know, what makes a person unique. So I think it's just creating an environment that factors into that, and being a space that, you know, for the employer, you know the challenges and the strengths of your employees, and for an employee, you feel that you can, you know, in an interview you can be like, oh, so what's the culture like, and they'll give you an honest answer so that you know what's going to be like when you get there. And I think from a personal point, as in, you know, someone who's trying to get into tech, I think, you know, intersectionality. I'm you know, a Black woman with dyslexia, and I'm studying and working in tech. I've been able to, you know, get experience at some, you know, quite, you know, known companies, but I've done that because I've learned through speaking to people and being open and honest, and having the, you know, the support of, you know, family and friends and things like that. So I think it's just, you know, being yourself and you know, finding strength in what makes you unique.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also think that I think there's kind of a bit too much focus on like the diversity aspects and not enough on like the inclusion. Like it's all about how do we get more diverse talent into these roles, but actually I think that is super important, but also we need to focus on how do we retain these this diverse talent. And often people just don't feel included in their workplaces. The culture just isn't right for them. I mean, it can be as simple as like after work drinks. Like a lot of Muslim people don't go to the pub after work, things like that. That completely can isolate people. And I think it can be a struggle, I guess, if yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call it a struggle, but as if you're just a completely white team, you might not see that. And it is just all about putting yourself in other people's shoes, and yeah, just understand and listening to other people as well. Like diversifying like your friendship group or who you follow on social media, all of those things like will just completely open your eyes to how other people live. So I'll move on to some of the questions now. So we've got this one. So it's more of a question or a statement. Speaking of hiring, our team is almost 100% white with pictures on our website. I'm worried that more people of colour are not applying because they do not think that they will be welcome in our team. How can we communicate that we are trying at least to be an inclusive and welcoming team? I guess that's kind of what we were talking about just now. But does anyone have any answers or thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think that if the company is truly trying to become more diverse and more inclusive, that should reflect on all kind of aspects of that company. So that includes through their recruitment process, the recruitment kind of website, having a complete white kind of team is not the most inviting kind of image for a potential candidate to apply. But then saying that if you are the only person of colour or Black person within that team, you don't want to fall prey to kind of having to be the spokesperson for all diversity initiatives, because that is exhausting. It's not part of your job description. And you inevitably will have your day job that you will need to excel in for performance kind of chats and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful with what you sign up to. And I think that, and it's linked to the first question, I think that companies need to be really honest with themselves as to how far they really want to take their diversity and inclusion kind of initiatives and efforts, because if it's just something where it's a tick box exercise, then you're going to then not retain the talent because you haven't actually set up an inclusive environment for that person to feel comfortable and to thrive. So I think with organisational change, especially when it relates to its culture and how inclusive it is, it's definitely a journey. It's not something that's going to happen overnight because they put out a statement for Black Lives Matter or they start doing certain talks. It literally is a journey, and it's something that their corporation has to live and breathe, and it needs to be shown throughout all their processes: recruitment, performance management, promotion. I mean, every single angle, it needs to be reflected. So that's a difficult one.
Can I add just like a little thing? I totally agree with what Catherine said, and sometimes it's just like you as a company, you need to really ask yourself, like, why do you want to have more inclusive? Why you want to have a diverse employee? Because as Catherine said, it's a complex process, and only when you have a strong why that you always come back to, that you can, like, you know, can go through all this like long process. And also, like what has been said, that hiring is one thing, but retaining the diverse talent is the hardest one, because, you know, like, yes, after you're hiring, maybe your website now become more colorful, but what's after that? You know, like, you also need to understand, like, how is it to be it's a person of color and like joining your team with like full white colleague. How does it make them feel? So maybe what a company can do is also like literally just putting in their website what is their way to take this seriously, like what is their commitment, and it needs to be shown there, because, you know, like, yes, you can hire them, but you don't know how long they will stay, because you don't know how uncomfortable this make them feel.
And what do you all think about companies that say that it's too difficult to hire like diverse talent?
I don't think it's true. They always say, oh, it's a diversity pipeline issue, when we've spoken today about coding Black females. Like, there are excellent Black diverse women of color people who can add value to corporations. It's just about, I think, again, recruiters checking their biases and affinity bias and making sure that they are providing access and leveling the playing field. So I don't believe that there is a diverse talent issue, because I just know too many excellent diverse people for that to be true.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I guess another key thing is just like reviewing where you're hiring from and the channels that they're coming from, because
and also make
a key problem.
Right. Also make your hiring team more diverse, because, you know, like when your hiring team is like full with white male, of course it's hard to get like a woman talent, because they don't know how to get them. They don't know like what's their perspective. They don't know where's the network, right?
And I think, just to add to that, I think this is where the intersectionality comes in, because actually some teams are saying, yes, we're diverse because we have women, but actually, are you having women of color, or are you just saying actually we're diverse because now we have women? Ensuring that intersectionality comes in, where you hire not just women, but also you're looking at that intersectionality of race and really including that. I think that's really important. There's some amazing organizations. There's diversifying.io, and they really work with recruiters. So if companies can get alongside people like that, but also coding Black females, they also have a job board. So if organizations can choose to partner with them and advertise their jobs on their website, it means that you will have access to diverse talent that are out there. Because I really do believe that there are diverse talent out there. Recruiters I really believe are not looking in the right place.
And another question, how can occasions like International Women's Day better consider intersectionality, do you think?
I guess it's just keep doing what organizations are doing, because I guess for conversations like this, it's just sparking them and keeping them going, and by creating more conversations, that just creates more awareness and things like that. So I think it's just kind of building on that momentum, and not kind of, I suppose sometimes you get these events and you attend and you're like, oh, that was great, I feel really inspired, and then like tomorrow you're like back to normal because you've go to work and blah blah blah. So I think it's just like really kind of keep the momentum going, because you know, like what everyone said, you know, the diverse talent is out there. We just need to really champion it and make people realize that, you know, there's strength in themselves, and you know, there's a place or a role or a career path which is, you know, for them.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I did want to add is also get diverse talent to speak on things that aren't related to diversity. We are all, you know, minorities, and have loads of different identities, but we all also are excelling in each and every one of our fields. So we definitely deserve to speak on things other than diversity. That's another thing I would add. Yeah, I think we're coming to a close on this. Yeah, is there any other points anyone hasn't said yet that they wanted to add before I kind of wrap up? Okay. Well, yeah, thanks so much to all of my amazing panelists. This has been a really, really interesting conversation, and I hope everyone's kind of taken something from it. And this is the third installment of our International Women's Day series. We have 2 more tomorrow on gender and urban planning, and also on developing future female leaders. So yeah, if you haven't already, please sign up to those. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joined us, and yeah, to our panelists again. Thanks, guys.